Hey folks, I'm going to do a quick review of topic 5 from Williamson's Macroeconomics. So in this topic we look at a real model, intertemporal model, so we have two periods we're playing with, and we're going to introduce investment now. Okay, so that's how it kind of slightly differs from previous topics. Three major players, one consumers, two firms, three governments. I'm going to go through all of them in more detail later. This video here is literally just going to be me deriving the budget constraint. I'm aiming to do it in as concise a time as possible, make it easy to understand. I don't want to overwhelm anyone too much. So let's start off with consumers. We'll go through it nice and quickly, but I do want to try and be thorough and explain some of the intuition behind things. Okay, so a consumer obviously seeks to maximize their utility, and in this topic we assume their utility is a function of the amount they consume as well as the leisure that they get to enjoy. Okay, so that'll make more sense in a little bit. Just to start off, I'll go through what I call axiom 1, and that's kind of how you kickstart this whole thing. So consumption is income minus taxation minus savings. Now, hopefully that makes quite a bit of sense. Whatever is left over from your income after accounting for tax and whatever you elect to save is what you're able to consume, right? Okay, so what we can do now, we introduce some exogenous H. So this kind of, we can loosely interpret this as number of hours within a day if you like, but it doesn't have to be interpreted like that. It kind of can be more of a general constraint on leisure and labor supplied, okay? So as I was saying, this is labor supply. Sorry, this is leisure. Always gets me confused. So the L here is leisure. Okay, I will write that up quickly. Leisure plus whatever amount of labor you choose to supply to a firm, right? So this is kind of labor supplied. Okay. So now we know H is exogenous. This should, again, hopefully make quite a bit of sense. We assume there's a binary choice with your time. You can either choose to enjoy it on leisure, or you can choose to supply it to a firm. And obviously, in supplying it to a firm, you will receive a wage. Okay, so that knowing that key insight kind of helps us break what I'm going to refer to as 1 down a little bit more. So we're not going to pay attention to dividends. Actually, no, sorry, yeah, we will. We'll add dividends in now. So income here is wage income. So let's talk about wage income first. So we know that just to be the wage level, which we denote W, and that we treat that as exogenous. The wage, exogenous. Wages times however much labor you choose to supply. So here it's N. Now we're going to add in pi, and pi is a dividend, okay? I'll explain it more later on, but we kind of make the assumption that firms are fully owned by our consumers, and all profits from the firms will go through to the consumers, okay? And as you've probably seen a million times before, we do tend to denote profit with pi, okay? So we're going to add that in here. So we're just going to add cheeky little pi to indicate dividends. We still minus taxation, we still minus savings, okay? So that's kind of the nice little current period budget constraint. But you might notice leisure hasn't been included here, okay? And we want to explain these decisions in terms of both consumption and leisure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rearrange this. We want to get rid of this N. So we're going to go N equals H minus L. Straightforward, it's kind of a little manipulation there. W. And we're going to add that new value for N in here. Still plus pi. Okay, so that should hopefully all be pretty straightforward so far. So that's kind of the current period budget constraint, if you will. Okay, now I'm going to go to a new page. Cool. Oh, all right, so I'm going to write that up the top here. What have I done? Okay, cool. So I'm going to write that up the top here just so it's a bit easier to follow along. Oh, first time doing this, excuse everything being a bit of a mess. We have to plus pi equals C plus S. Now this has been rearranged a teeny bit, okay? Excuse that if you will. Now, we want to consider the future, okay? So this is kind of all this stuff. This right here is the current period, the first period. We're going to look at the future now. So what I'm going to do, okay. Yeah, okay. So what we're going to try and do here, I'm going to just go straight into the future, and then I'm going to explain a small little manipulation we do with savings to kind of end up with one nice combined budget. Okay. So the deal is, in the future, we have some level of savings. Okay, so we have this level of savings from the first period, and that's grown. Okay, so we say that's grown by 1 plus R. All right, so I'm just going to write that up now. So 1 plus R. Now, R is just the real interest rate. We treat this as exogenous. Now, this kind of makes sense, right? So, say I make my savings in the first period. I save $100. The interest rate is 10%. We assume that those savings I put in earn the real interest rate, which is kind of a weird assumption. Our bank accounts at the moment don't really earn that real interest rate, but we'll actually also explain that later on too. So my savings grow at 1 plus R. Okay, so I now have 1 plus RS to use in the future period. Now, really importantly, there will be no savings left over at the end of the future period now. So you can save in the first period, but you cannot save in the future. You can save in the current period, but you cannot have savings at the end of the future period. So everything must be spent by the end of that future period. Okay, so that's kind of going to explain why this looks a little bit funky now. I'm going to add on here. So this is the future period. So we're going to denote our future variables with a dash. Okay, so everything up here is current. The current, no, comma, dash, whatever you want to call it. We're going to add in dashes now. Okay, so we're going to add in income like we did before. So wage income like we did before. Note that the wage is W dash now. The wage can change between the periods, right? Now, H, our exogenous kind of time constraint, doesn't change. We assume that to be fixed across the two periods, which is kind of a reasonable assumption. 24 hours in a day kind of stays more or less consistent between periods. Now, leisure changes. We make that decision again. Consumers will be making the decision on how much to consume and how much leisure to enjoy again in that second period. Okay, so that's denoted L dash and is not exogenous. Okay, it's endogenous. We will go through that more in a bit. We still add in I, but this time it's dividends from the future period. Okay, so the firm has profits in the future period as well, which we add in here and which get given to our consumer. Okay, minus taxation equals consumption in the second period. So note, I'm going to note this future. So we have C dash here. Okay, so consumption, again, endogenous. We have to make that decision again in the second period as a consumer. Taxation also, lump sum, changes potentially between periods. Maybe the government changes their mind, whatever. Okay, now explaining this in a little bit more detail. So here, interestingly, savings is added on this left-hand side of the equation. Okay, whereas up here, if we had the savings over here with everything else, it would be minus. That comes back to what I was saying before, right? Savings have to be contributed towards consumption. There is no leftover savings. So whatever, the more you save, the larger the savings value is, the greater your future consumption can be, right? If I save all my income in the first period, I'm going to have a lot of income which I can then go ahead and use to consume with in the future period. Okay, so that's what we have so far. Now I'm going to do a further kind of cheeky rearrangement of the current. Okay, so looking at the current now. Why I'm going to do this? We basically want to combine everything in here in the future and the current into one nice super long budget constraint which we can use. Okay, it's a lot easier to handle one budget constraint. So kind of the obvious move here is S. S is common in the future and the current, and we're going to use that S as a bit of a chain to sort of link the two up, if you will. So I'm going to rearrange current here. It's quite straightforward, hopefully. So it's just savings equals H minus L plus I minus T minus C. So I'm going to bring this value of S, so this is from current. So from current, I'm going to chuck this value of S into my future budget constraint. So we're going to end up with 1 plus R. And then I'm going to use nice square brackets so it doesn't get too. We're using this value of S, so we're going 1 plus R, this value of S, yeah, plus 5 minus T minus C. So now we don't want to forget all this stuff. Can get a little bit tricky to remember all of those dashes. Just do your best. Cool. So this is it. This is intertemporal budget constraint because it's accounting for both periods simultaneously, and it's a constraint kind of implying, yeah, it's a constraint on both like C dash, L dash, and also L. I'm going to denote this BC. I'll probably do that a lot. Just budget constraint is long. So what we're going to do here, we're going to do a cheeky little rearrangement again. It's just kind of what we're going to do now is we're going to put it in net present value terms. Okay. If you don't know, net present value is essentially just interest rate accounting. It's just accounting for the real interest rate and putting everything in today dollar terms, if you will. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide everything through by 1 plus R. Okay. You'll note I am going through everything like quite slowly, step by step. A lot of people kind of within my courses in university and stuff note that a lot of steps tend to be skipped. I'm just trying to provide more of the intuition behind it, so it's a bit less scary. Okay, bit of a tangent. So what I'm going to do now is we've divided by 1 plus R, right? So we're going to chuck this over 1 plus R. I'm going to chuck I dash minus T dash over 1 plus R. And we're going to chuck C dash also 1 plus R. So pretty straightforward. Now, this can be further rearranged, and the result is actually quite cool, at least to me. What we're going to do is we are going to chuck everything. So we're going to chuck everything related to wage income and dividends on the left-hand side. We end up with this. That's my wage income plus dividends. And we're going to chuck everything related to consumption and taxation on the right-hand side here. Okay, so I'm going to move this C, becomes positive on the right-hand side. And we're going to introduce taxation as well. Okay, so tax here. What have I done? Oh no, yeah, all good, all good. So plus T dash on 1 plus. Okay, now this is kind of, to me, quite a cool result, and sort of where we'll end the video today. But let's break it down a little bit just so it all makes sense. Okay, so we consider this little bit here. This is net present value of wages, kind of. This is net present value of, that's a crummy little squiggly mark, net present value of dividends. Okay, consumption, net present value of tax. Cool. So this is what we're going to play with from now on. This bottom one here, it does kind of make a lot more sense in this form. So let's try and think about it. We'll think about like what this actually means super quickly. I might cover that more in the next video. But essentially, whatever your wage income is, so the net present value of your wage income plus the net present value of your dividends. So this left-hand side is kind of your income, if you will. This is net present value of income, okay? Of total income, that is. And it has to equal exactly the net present value of consumption plus taxation. Think about these as kind of, this is sort of the stock of capital that you have at your disposal. Okay, disposal. You can. This is how much you have. This is basically your net worth in a sense, very loosely. This is sort of net present value of net worth. You have to consume, or the constraint indicates that you have to be consuming from this net worth, and taxation also comes from this net worth as well. Okay. Yeah. So that's kind of it. The explanation of this wasn't super great. I'll try and do a better one in the next video. Yeah. So that's been a quick run through. I have a kind of sheet of notes on Overleaf that I use for this sort of stuff, and I will make that available if that's something people are interested in. It's kind of similar to the textbook, but it's more I don't know, intuitive in a way. Yeah. Okay, cool. That's it from me. Thank you very much.